Hey there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. I'm your host, Patsun. So before we begin, I just wanted to be 100% transparent with you guys. I sincerely believe that today's first story is just creative writing. I don't think that it's real and quite honestly fictitious. But the reason why I'm still using it as today's featured story is because quite surprisingly, it's very well written. Trust me guys, you will not regret it. Okay? So let's begin. Hello world. My story of heartbreak and the affair of my first love. Posted by Reddit user helpful alt account.
Hello world. So first off, I should let you all know that for the sake of confidentiality, the names in this writing have been altered. However, I promise that the events and emotions within this narrative are entirely real. It's definitely verbose, but I tried to keep it to just the interesting bits, definitely not my strong suit. I originally felt embarrassed and uncomfortable with telling strangers my innermost feelings, but my friends and family tell me that the quickest way to feeling like myself again is through confronting my fears. Here's to hoping they're right. Ever since I was a kid, those around me pushed me into science and STEM in general. Apparently, I had a knack for it. And realistically, it looked like the world was starting to focus more and more on technology anyways. It became my identity of sorts, that one guy who made both classes and studying the forefront in his life. It wasn't a bad way of existing, at least for me. I honestly never really stopped to think if I wanted anything more. In a weird way, I was content. So things continued dutifully as usual up until my early teens, but that's when my life decided to take an unexpected detour. My diagnosis was swift and treatment started promptly. While my exact illness I prefer to keep private for privacy's sake, I can promise my condition wasn't too dire. A few months under hospital care, and I was good enough to manage the road to recovery on my own. In a twisted way, my time being sick was actually a blessing. I met Alice there. She was a few years younger than me, but eclipsed both my height and wits. For a late-stage leukemia patient, Alice held her own quite well. Although I didn't know her for very long, she had a big impact on my teenage years. Alice was the first person to make me question both who and what I truly aspired to become. I remember for the first time, genuinely feeling an aching desire for companionship outside my immediate family. That feeling rattled my core. I loved it. As my condition improved, and hers unfortunately worsened, I lost contact with Alice. A source told me she passed away a few months later. I still don't want to believe them. In any event, I took her wisdom to heart and decided to make some friends. My best friends. Friends that had my back through all this. Let's call them Braden and Nolan. I'm extremely grateful they're in my life. Together we worked on a project to memorialize Alice, a special computer named after her, designed to uncover the physical and digital aspects that define the connections between humanity. I'll admit it makes for a pretty vague press release, but it instilled within me a passion for artificial intelligence. This, in turn, was what guided me to study computer science at my dream university. Plus, my friends and I got to have a few Alice-related adventures along the way. College started on a rather tepid autumn morning. Nothing too unusual, and honestly quite forgettable if not for one small detail. This was the day that I saw Eve. Love at first sight is, in my opinion, a ridiculous notion. Love takes time to cultivate over months or years of hard work. It's the antithesis to an instant of time. But that doesn't mean I wasn't enamored. It was like I was pulled into a trance. The way she walked, her curled hair flowing behind her in the wind, it forced me to redefine my concept of crush. Over the next few days, I mustered up the courage to strike up a conversation with her. She was an international student, so I brushed up on her country's trivia in an admittedly brick-headed move to sound impressive. When I finally did say hi, the rest of the day became a muddled blur. But the one event I'll never soon forget was ending up huddled together on the roof of my car at midnight, while I told her the stories behind the constellations. She grabbed my hand, and that's when I remembered feeling on top of the world. Soon after, we started dating. A couple months after that, we made our relationship official. Well, actually, the mayor of a big city accidentally caused that. A while later, we were living together in my apartment. Days spanned into weeks, weeks into months, and months into years. In my eyes, the universe finally felt harmonious. We adopted pets together. We traveled together, studied together, saved together, dreamed together. Sure, we'd argue and fight on occasion, but we'd always apologize after and work things through as a team. Eventually, I let my guard down and figured my life was set. We'd both get our master's degrees soon, find good jobs, and keep building that perfect life we've always talked about before falling asleep. But life has a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. I awoke one night to Eve sobbing in the bathtub, I rushed to see what the matter was. She was on the phone with her mother and sister. Her father apparently passed away a few minutes ago halfway around the planet. I never had the opportunity to meet him. The two weren't exactly close, but with the tears in her eyes, I couldn't help but feel the heartbreak as one. To this day I can see her overwhelmed expression vividly in my mind's eye, and it fills me with both sorrow and guilt. She took a flight back to her family to grieve. She wanted it to be private, and I don't blame her one bit. She deserved everything the way she wanted it. I tried to remind her of that, at least I hope I did. When she came back, she was a bit different. But honestly, who wouldn't be? Eve told me that she wanted to take a break from school before attending a different university for her graduate degree. We all thought it was a pretty good idea. COVID-19 was the hot topic at hand during her break. Money was tight, so we ended up moving back into my parents' house for a while. Both of our families were good friends, so it seemed like the logical resolution. And it worked well, at least until it didn't. Fights between us began to increase exponentially. Red flags would crop up here and there. My friends started to worry that I was blind to it. Life got a bit harder. I felt bad for Eve. I loved her so much and I hated seeing her angry or upset. I reminded us that it was only for a couple months, and then we'd both be back at university. All these issues were temporary, and anything more concerning could be addressed with a counselor. When the time came, we said our intimate goodbyes and went back into our respective schools' housing. While I was alone, I had a lot of time to read relationship advice books and self-reflect. It was during this time that I decided I wanted to surprise her during winter break. For the past year, we'd both talked about getting married for practical reasons. She could live here indefinitely with a permanent resident card, and since we already did everything together, it was the logical next step. But I didn't just want practicality to be the reason I tied the knot with Eve. I loved Eve with a passion, and I wanted her to know everything I did was out of love. So I bought a ring and planned a perfect proposal. Meanwhile, I'd call her every day and talk with her about life, the universe, and everything. But something was different with Eve. Her voice was more melancholy and somber than usual. Her eyes seemed duller and her smile sunken and faded. I tried to bring it up, but she'd simply changed the subject. Winter break finally arrived and I couldn't be giddier. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. The moment I'd take Eve on a trip around the country and finally ask her to marry me at the perfect time. Except, that's not what happened. That's not what happened at all. Eve walked up to me and the first thing she told me was, "I don't want you anymore." The words cut like knives. I was confused at the joke. We had just called a few hours ago talking about all the things we were planning on doing together. But as she continued talking, it was clear it wasn't a poorly timed prank. Apparently, as my friends and family uncovered, she met another man and started dating him the moment she went back to university. She was telling him she loved him minutes before she would tell me the same thing. While I daydreamed of the time we would walk the city, she was wrapped under his arm. When I would kiss her goodnight and hang up the call to sleep, I can only brutally imagine what they must have done next. It was my undoing. When a heart breaks, it shatters into a million pieces, some of which are massless and zoom away at the speed of light. No matter how hard you try, you'll never be able to retrieve those few that are doomed to drift off into space. I broke the moment I unraveled the horror of the truth. I snapped in half, curled up in a corner of my room, spewing nonsensical statements and cursing at myself for every time we argued. It was my fault. I drove her away. I hurt her. If I just could have been a better person, she'd still be my sweet, perfect Eve. I couldn't take it. My friends always joked that I was a certified mad scientist. Maybe they were onto something. First, I developed and synthesized my own chemical compounds in my workshop. Powerful computer-developed hallucinogens I specifically formulated to try and feel Eve's presence, even if it was a lie. I got myself addicted to the torment, seeing and hearing someone who meant everything to me, only for them to disappear when the high wore off. Time for plan B. I wanted to forget. Forget her, forget the pain. I used my RF and TMS knowledge to build a powerful localized electromagnet. I aimed it straight at my head, figuring if it didn't fry my memory, it might at least fry away the pain. Unfortunately, seizures aren't very fun and the mind is more complex than I anticipated. My friends and family managed to stop me from getting any stupider. One of my friends suggested I meet a new girl to cheer me up. Unfortunately, that backfired astoundingly. Luckily, she recognized I was going through a lot of emotional turmoil and offered to pay for therapy. While I decided to find my own therapist in the end, I am immensely grateful for her help and I wouldn't be where I am today without her. It's nice to know there are genuinely good people in the world. What I think really altered the course of my future, however, was a simple interaction with a waitress. The first year after Eve left, I was akin to a drug-addled zombie of my own making. I put on a good show at work, then quickly retreated back into my shell afterwards. Cooking and eating became something of a painful chore, so I would always stop by at my local diner as a regular customer. Despite my overall doom and gloom appearance, my waitress would always smile, greet me by name, and remind me that today was a new day and to make the most of it. In a way, she reminded me a lot of Alice, a person who, no matter how much life throws at them, always looks at the positives. It was the embodiment of pure humanity. I decided to walk to my workshop right after dinner. I shuffled to a dusty corner of my workbench and lifted off a torn blanket. An old CRT monitor rested beneath with a marker drawn, in honor of Alice, scrawled on the plastic. I started bawling. I cried for the loss of Eve. I cried for the destruction of innocence. I cried for the helpless animal I let myself become. I was willing to throw my very identity away out of painful spite, out of self-loathing. My first love led me to the darkness, but the kindness of strangers is what pulled me out. Then it clicked. For me, the way to heal is to give back. I planned to travel the world and put my talents to use. I know I can't save the world, but I can at least make a difference just like those valuable souls did for me. I feel like it's my lot in life. So yeah, I guess looking back at it, heartbreak led me to my true calling. I still love Eve to this day, nearly 2 years later, but I'm learning to channel my love into others as well. So, when I asked one of my best friends how to collect the shattered remains of my broken heart, I guess he was right when he asked, "Why are you looking for those specific ones? Let them carry your sorrow to the stars." QED.
Oh man, OP, seriously. Regardless if this story is real or not, you should really consider becoming a writer, even as a side gig. In my opinion, I find this really amazing. The way you wrote it is just, I don't know, it just resonates to me. I particularly love that you use some sci-fi elements to symbolize drug addiction and attempted suicide. I hope you expand on this story in the future, and this was a real treat. Honestly, good luck, man. Today's second story is from r/NuclearRevenge. And my title will be, well shit, if you wanted explosive diarrhea, you should have just asked. Posted by Reddit user GodPixel Muncher.
I am 17 years of age, and I go to school with a kid who goes by the name of Zane. This particular guy isn't the brightest stereotypical country hillbilly, nor is the most pleasant to be around. I will also say, my girlfriend's little sibling goes to this school. Zane is a thorn in everyone's side. He's openly racist, homophobic, and a real piece of work in general. He's especially racist towards black folks, which my girlfriend and her family are. As I live in a mostly white area, there aren't many kids for Zane to target. He knows he can't bully my girlfriend, because instead of just having a 6 feet 5 inches giant that I am for his 5 feet 2 inches ass to be afraid of, my girlfriend, small and cute as she is, could mess him the fuck up if she wanted to. He's already not fond of fighting me, because of the time he made fun of my burn scars and pee, and I dunked his head in a toilet. However, he has no idea that my girlfriend has a little brother, 7 years old. So when he saw a little black boy with a bag full of candy he won in a game his class played, he saw that as a golden opportunity to bully a child and take candy from a baby. And Zane did just that, knocked my best bud down, and spat on him before taking his candy and leaving. When he came home with his legs scraped up and bawling, his parents called the school, but they said there's no evidence that Zane did it, so they can't do anything. My girlfriend called me pissed, talking about how she's going to beat the shit out of Zane, and I was fuming too, but I kept it on the down low. I told her there's no reason to get kicked out of school, so I would take care of it. She asked how, and I told her I have an idea. The next day at school, I offered Zane a truce. I told him that I want to let bygones be bygones, and that I'm nearly an adult. He's 18. We would be graduating this year, and there's no reason to always be at each other's throats, and that we should hang out more. He was a bit confused, but took my offer willingly. Part of my offer was a 5-pound bag of gummy bears. Now audience, have you ever heard of sugar-free gummy bears? The ones that replace the sugar with a little something called lycosine, a sugar alcohol that also acts as a laxative, a high-reaction laxative. About 5 gummy bears are enough to put you in the bathroom for an hour. So how long would 5 pounds put you in the restroom for? An hour. 4 hours. A day. The guy liked candy, and oh boy how thrilled he was to have just been handed the biggest, most delicious bag of gummy bears in his life. He was so excited, he ate the whole bag in one sitting, right at the beginning of the school day. And the best thing is, they kicked in at the start of his second class, the one where he was supposed to be given an attendance award from the teacher. Not much, just a gift card. But oh man, he's nowhere to be seen. Nor is he anywhere to be seen at lunch, or the bus ride to VO Tech, or at VO Tech. I get a notification saying that there was an active shooter response at my school, as what sounded like gunshots had been heard coming from the cafeteria bathroom. Apparently, it was Zane, who had been silently weeping for God to end it all, while he had been out of toilet paper in the bathroom for almost 5 hours. His rectum had produced noises louder than his vocal cords could. His parents had to come pick him up, and he wasn't at school for the next few days. He had to wait out his explosive diarrhea for a few days before his system was cleaned out. It was so bad, we weren't allowed to use the cafeteria bathroom, men's or women's, for almost a week until the smell cleared out. The school lost almost $50 on Glade plugins and Febreze, and Zane earned himself a new nickname, Shit Missile. And all of that was because getting a racist, abusive moron to eat laxative gummy bears was easier than stealing candy from a baby. I never told my girlfriend that I was the reason behind the Shit Missile's terrible stole of luck, but I'm pretty sure she knew. And I don't think I'd change what I did, because so far, Superstition Shit Missile hasn't even looked at my girlfriend's little brother. And I had an excuse not to hang out with Zane. Because who wants to hang out with the kid whose ass put the school on lockdown? To me, it feels like a win in my book. And for those who will inevitably heckle, I've posted a screenshot of the email my friend forwarded me from my on-campus police officer during the active shooter drill. I didn't exaggerate anything about this story.
So before we proceed, here is the email that OP received from his friend. Take it as you will. Okay, my man, OP. This is a fun read and all, but come on, a 5-pound bag of gummies would be well over 400 gummy bears. You expect us to believe that he ate a whole 5-pound bag of gummies in one sitting? Seriously? Okay, fine. I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt here. After all, I'm a fat fuck, and I can personally wolf down some obscene amount of food. So a growing teen, who I'm assuming is also a fat fuck, and whose metabolism is probably all over the place? Yeah, I guess I can see that happening, but that doesn't mean that I 100% believe your story. At worst, this is completely fake, and at best, this is very heavily embellished. Also, OP, if this is in fact a true story, wrong subreddit. More like regular revenge. Viewer support is the best way for me to remain independent and continue bringing you these daily videos, which will always be here on my YouTube channel for you to watch absolutely free. So consider clicking that super thanks just below the video title, or you can use my PayPal in the description box down below. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you even somewhat enjoyed today's story, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and if you really like it, make sure to subscribe to PattSun to never miss a future upload. Stay strong.